Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a really fascinating story about high-stakes global politics. We're going to go behind the headlines of this huge superpower summit to uncover the unseen player who, well, might just be the secret architect of the whole thing.
So, let's start with a question. Picture this. It's August 15th, 2025. The US and Russia are meeting in Alaska. The topic? Ukraine's future. Huge, right? But here's the twist. What if the most important work, the really decisive moves, aren't even happening at that main table? What if it's all being orchestrated from the shadows by a totally unexpected power?
Okay, so first, let's set the scene. To really get why a secret architect is even needed here, you have to understand just how incredibly high the stakes are.
All right, so this Alaska summit, it's the first major meeting between the US and Russia since tensions pretty much hit a boiling point. And you can bet the entire world is watching, basically holding its breath, hoping for any sign of a breakthrough that could stop this from escalating into a much wider conflict.
And this right here is the heart of the problem. You've got this complete diplomatic deadlock. On one side, you have Ukraine's President Zelensky, and his stance is unwavering, full territorial sovereignty, no compromise. But on the other side, you've got Russia's President Putin, who is just as firm, resisting what he calls unacceptable security compromises. So what you have is this fundamental gridlock that has left very, very little room for any kind of peaceful resolution.
So you've got the two main players basically stuck at a complete standstill. Who on earth could possibly break this deadlock? Well, the answer? It's probably not who you think.
Yep, India. Now, they're not officially at the negotiating table, but behind the scenes, New Delhi is working tirelessly. They're using this strategy of subtle influence, of strategic neutrality, to kind of gently nudge the talks in the right direction. Honestly, it's a masterclass in what's called quiet diplomacy.
And this approach is all built around this one powerful idea, summed up by Prime Minister Modi. This is not an era of war. Now, that isn't just a soundbite, It's the philosophical anchor for India's entire strategy. It's all about choosing dialogue over confrontation. And that principle, that's what gives India its unique diplomatic power here.
So what exactly is this quiet diplomacy? Well, think of it this way. It's like having a trusted mutual friend step in to mediate a really tough conversation, between two people who just aren't talking anymore. The whole point is to create a safe, neutral space for communication, a space that just wouldn't exist without them. It's not really about making demands, it's much more about just fostering a little bit of understanding.
Okay, so how is India actually doing this? What does this look like in practice? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a really carefully coordinated playbook with 5 strategic moves.
Okay, let's break this down. First, India acts as a neutral bridge. They're the one power that can talk to both Washington and Moscow without losing credibility with either. From there, they can shape the agenda, using those back-channel talks to keep important but difficult topics like humanitarian aid on the table. This only works because they've spent years building strategic trust. That trust is what lets them guide the discussions. But, and this is so important, they do all this while fiercely protecting their geopolitical autonomy. India's own interests are always a priority. And all of these steps, they're all about one main goal: to sustain the conditions for peace, even if a final deal isn't reached right away. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. People are noticing. Key figures in Washington have publicly acknowledged India's quiet but really effective role. For example, you have U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, who has openly talked about India's influence over Moscow. And even former President Donald Trump hinted that India's work behind the scenes helped get this summit off the ground faster.
But let's be clear, this is a total high-wire act. I mean, even with the most skillful diplomacy in the world, this whole process is incredibly fragile. There are some huge risks here that could derail, well, everything.
Yeah, despite all this careful, quiet work, there are 3 major risks looming over these talks, casting a really long shadow over the whole thing.
Because at the end of the day, the hard realities on the ground can just shatter even the best laid plans. First, you've got Kyiv's absolutely non-negotiable position on its territory. That's a massive obstacle. Then there's the constant risk of a provocation, either political or military, that could cause the whole thing to collapse in an instant. And maybe the biggest hurdle of all? That deep, long-standing historical distrust between the US and Russia. You just can't wish that away overnight.
So you might be thinking, if success is so uncertain and the risks are this high, why is India even bothering? Why invest so much diplomatic capital? Well, it's because for India, this isn't just about one summit. It is all about the strategic long game.
See, for India, success here isn't just about whether a peace treaty gets signed. No matter what the final outcome is,
By playing this role of mediator, India comes out with 3 big wins. First, it boosts its credibility as a global peacemaker. Second, it helps them maintain balanced partnerships with both the US and Russia. And third, it builds up some serious diplomatic leverage for the future. It's a win-win-win from their perspective.
So, let's just pull this all together for a second. We've got the summit on August 15th. We have India playing this crucial role as a diplomatic bridge. Their main goal? Preserve their own autonomy while trying to help build peace. And all the while, these massive challenges, the territorial disputes, the risk of provocation, the deep mistrust, they are all very, very real. That's the delicate balance of this entire situation, all in one place.
And that really leaves us with a final fascinating thought. While the world's cameras are all focused on the main stage in Alaska, on the handshakes and the headlines, India's quiet diplomacy makes us ask a much bigger question. Is the very future of peacemaking shifting? Maybe, just maybe. The most powerful force for resolving conflict isn't on the main stage anymore. Maybe it's in the quiet, tireless work happening just out of sight, in the wings.